Hi everybody, this is part 3 of food prepping for the coming famine. Okay, in this video, I really wanted it to be a lot fancier and for me to show you different things like my canner and show you my canned foods, what they look like in their jars. Um, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that now with this. I might actually make a video where I'm just showing you all those things and I'll upload it the way you can see them. But I'm not going to do that right now. I just want to talk right now and give you guys some pointers about canning. Okay, first of all, as I began to look into the best ways to prepare for a famine that's coming, or to prepare for, to prep, I found that canning was going to be one of the best inexpensive ways to do it. It is work, but it is absolutely worth it. And it does cost, I would say, under $300 to get a good start with canning. And for some people, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me, but my husband and I, we talked about it and we realized, this is an investment. This is going to pay for itself pretty quickly. It's great to freeze food if you have a freezer. What I do as far as prepping and considering emergencies, if our power goes out or anything, I try to have as much frozen food that has been cooked already in my freezer, because if I don't have a source of electricity to cook things, I already have food that has been cooked. It's just been frozen and we can just eat it eventually. You would not eat those foods first if you understand what you do if you have a power outage for an extended period of time. You let the cold food stay in there as long as the freezer and the fridge can be cold, and eat other foods that are not refrigerated first. But we're going to talk about canning. I was really scared. I was intimidated by it. I thought this is something that's just going to be so confusing. I don't know what to do because, you hear words like you have to have weights and you have to have a certain amount of pressure and you have to put this thing on and you have to do this for 10 minutes. And it gets it starts to sound very complicated and scary. And if you're like me, you Googled stuff, and I heard stories about women losing their eyes because, something popped off the canner and took their eye out. Up front, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna have fears. You're gonna be nervous probably on some level. Maybe you won't. Most probably will, but it's worth it. I do not have a huge canner. My canner, I know, will hold about 7 quarts. I can can 7 quarts at a time. And of course I can can more pints, maybe up to 9 pints at a time. So it's not the biggest kind of canner you can buy. I didn't have the money to do it. I bought mine on sale for about $80. The brand is Miro. It's spelled Mirro. It does not have. It has a weight to put on it, but it does not have like a temperature gauge or whatever, or the pressure gauge that some pressure canners have. Okay, you also have to have mason jars that have to have lids and rings, and you've probably seen those before. That's what you can your food in. You need to have utensils. There's a set of utensils that are really good to have. They're just very useful. I really truly feel like it makes canning, it's worth it. It's worth it to buy it. And usually it's like $14 to buy them. It'll have like a funnel that fits for your mason jars, your canning jars. And then you'll have some devices that will help you to safely take out your jars once they've finished being canned. You can take them out of your canner because your canner will be really, really hot, and the food will too. So there's this thing that there's things that you can use to do that. There's a magnet that helps you to get your lids, to put your lids on there. These are all good things. It's kind of hard to describe all that. So I'm not going to try to describe it further. But there's a set of utensils you can get. I recommend that you get pint jars and that you get quart jars. I do use 8-ounce jars, which is half pints, for some things. But quarts and pints are what basically you use. And when you go to certain sites, you're gonna see that they recommend that too. And the guidance. I mean, I bought a cookbook. I think it's called the Ball Recipe Book. It was $8. Definitely worth buying that because it gives you all the basics: how to do soups, how to can beans, vegetables, how to can fruits, jams, all these different things. It has all that information in there, and they generally just speak in terms of gallons and pints. They don't talk about other sizes, but there are other sizes of jars, and you can with the smaller, like 8-ounce and even 4-ounce, and then even bigger, like a gallon mason jar. So this cost, for me, the cost was probably around $300 to get started. But for me, we knew it was an investment, and we're very frugal people for the most part, and we will buy things that are an investment and that will quickly pay itself off. Okay, when it comes to canning meat, these are the things that I've learned that are the easiest and the least expensive, especially now that the prices of meat have gone up and there's shortages. And if you do things like me, like I order online and my husband does the pickup, like I'll order for an order of food or groceries from Walmart for pickup at a certain time. My husband will get off work, he'll go to Walmart, and they will put the groceries in the van for him. And of course it's paid for online, and he brings them home, and then I have the food. That's generally the way we shop, especially because of the virus, because we want to be out and around people as little as possible. We think that's wise. So here's what I do. I'm going to try to keep this simple for you. I will buy, and I know it's best to buy organic. I love to buy organic when I can. It's good to buy grass-fed. It's good to buy meats that do not have the hormones in them. I understand that. But let me tell you something. When it comes down to famine and hunger, what's going to matter is that you just have something to eat. It's going to be better than risking, eating food that could be spoiled, or insects, or food that's poisonous, out in the wild. You're just going to be happy to have something to eat. So I don't generally buy. I like to buy organic, and I do when I can, when it's affordable. But what I do is I buy the least expensive thing possible, which is generally not going to be grass-fed. It's generally not going to be hormone-free, and not going to be what's the other thing? Organic or whatever. I guess really doesn't have to be organic. I don't know, organic. I'm thinking in my mind, how can meat be organic? I can see how it can be grass-fed and stuff like that and be important. But anyway, moving on. This is what I've learned. We do like chicken breast in this family. Skinless, boneless chicken breast. And I like to cook it once or twice a week. Well, the Lord told me to can meat. So I've been canning meat every week. And I've gotten some things down. I have found that it is cheaper and it is more efficient to buy whole chickens. For weeks and weeks now, Kroger, which is a store here in Tennessee, has had a sale on a certain brand of they call them whole fryers. It's a whole chicken for 99 cents a pound. And so I pay around $5 to $7 per chicken. All right, I'll buy 4 of these. this is what I do. I buy 4 of these chickens. I cut the breasts off of at least 3 of them. I may cut them off all 4. I set them aside in a bag so that I can cook that for a meal during the week. If I don't think I'm going to be able to cook it that week, I can put it in my freezer. So I'll do that. Then I have the rest of the chicken. Okay. So I have a large stock pot. I have a big pot, stewing pot. And I will put both of those, I'll put 2 chickens in there without the breasts. Just put them in there with carrots, potatoes, a few potatoes, not a lot of potatoes, but carrots and celery. Those are the basic things. Those are the main things that I put in, an onion. Because I'm making chicken stock, I'm making chicken broth, and I'm making chicken soup with those 2 chickens, okay, without their breasts. Sometimes I cut them up in parts, but sometimes I'll just, after I've cut the breasts off, I just put the rest of it in there, the whole thing. Put both of them in a large stock pot. I put sufficient amount of water to cover the chickens, and then I will chop up carrots and celery and add those, and then add potatoes too, and onions. Always put onions in. And you can put other seasonings in there too. I like to put a bay leaf in there. I like to put rosemary. And so I'll let that slow cook. And I will use that chicken and the broth that is made with it for soups mostly. Okay. The other 2 chickens, I will usually cook in my Instant Pot. Or I'll put one in a crock pot and one in the Instant Pot, the other 2. And I slow cook them. Okay? I slow cook them. And so all these 4 chickens, I don't have a lot of waste. I use almost every piece of those chickens, okay? So the 2 chickens in the stock pot with the broth, that goes for a chicken soup. I can the chicken soup. It's chicken broth, natural broth, salt and pepper, onion, celery, and carrot. And a few potatoes sometimes I'll put those in there. You can't can rice or pasta. So that's your vegetable soup. It's ready to eat. You can open the jar up after you've canned it in the pressure canner and just add the noodles and rice to it if you want to. The other 2 chickens that I've slow cooked in the crock pot and in the Instant Pot, I've also seasoned them. I have just a little bit of water, especially in the Instant Pot, to make some good broth with. I don't usually add a lot of vegetables. I simply add seasonings that I like, rosemary, bay leaf, salt, pepper, a little garlic, a little onion maybe. And I slow cook those for a long time, like on low. So they're very, very tender. I take those 2 chickens and I take and get all of the meat off of them. I debone them and I throw away I toss out some of the, I guess, tendons and cartilage. That's the word I'm looking for. I toss those away. And so I end up having a lot of chicken, and most of it's dark meat, not all of it. But because I've got the wings and I've got some of the breast, because I never cut off the complete breast. There's always a little bit of the white meat that's still there. It's probably because I just can't cut a chicken good. But so then I have all this chicken, and I take 2 forks and I just start shredding it. Okay, and I try to go through it and I try to get every bone out. And believe me, that is the job. You've really got to look closely. My son the other day, he was like, "Mom, there was a bone in the chicken I ate," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But you do. You separate. You keep the bones. You keep the bones from the 2 other chickens that you cooked in the pot for soup, chicken soup. So chicken soup with 2 chickens. These other 2 chickens, I'm just taking all the meat off that's left off of it, using 2 forks to separate it and to shred it up. Then I take half of that meat and I put it with barbecue sauce. And I let it simmer in the barbecue sauce for just a short time, and I can it. So we have barbecue chicken that we can just take out and put on a sandwich or have in a meal later on. My son Timothy, my youngest son, loves the barbecue chicken, so I always give him some when I make some every week to make sandwiches with. The other chicken, I make chicken salad with. I make chicken salad with it, and most of us in the family enjoy eating chicken salad sandwiches. Or we can put the chicken salad on a salad, like on lettuce, and it's very good. So that's what I do each week. There's a large amount of the food that I do can, then there's the food that I do eat out of it. Now, if you don't want to make the barbecue chicken, to can, or if you don't want to make the chicken salad to eat during the week, you can take that chicken and you can use it in another way. You can make more chicken soup, or you can just can the chicken by itself. You can do it. But it is always important when you're canning anything, and I'm talking mostly about chicken right now, but I'm talking about any foods at all. It's extremely important to follow the instructions and the directions exactly as they're said, because you are dealing with pressure, and you are dealing with heat, and you are dealing with germs. And one of the reasons that these canned foods are shelf stable for so long is because bacteria has been killed in it, and oxygen cannot get to it. So you have to make sure that you do things properly, or they will not turn out right. And I promise you, after you've done it a few times, you start to feel more and more comfortable, and you start getting better at it. So chickens, I spend probably about $25 to $30 for chicken. Out of that, we get one or two meals with chicken breasts in the week, and then we have chicken salad for chicken salad sandwiches. I can lots of chicken soup and broth, and then I can the barbecue chicken. Also, I save the bones, and after I've saved enough bones, I make bone broth, and I can that bone broth, except for the little bit. Sometimes I'll drink some of it because it's very, very nutritious, and it's very, very good, especially because if we're in a situation where there's a food shortage, and if we're in a situation where we don't have insurance, when we can't get health care, we're going to need some really nutritious, healthy foods to help us get better. And it is well known that chicken broth and stock, chicken soup, does a lot to help someone recover from certain viruses, the common cold being one of them. I try to can all of the broth. Okay, any broth that's left over after I make my chicken soups, I'll can it. And then I make also the bone broth and use that and get lots of good bone broth out of that, lots of nutrition. So that's a lot of things that you can with chicken, those 4 chickens, and you also have a few things to eat through the week. That's the way I do it, and that's the way I'm going to share it. The easiest type of meat and the least expensive kind of meat when it comes to beef, and I'll go ahead and say turkey, is going to be ground. Okay, it's ground beef and ground turkey, and that's what I buy. That's me. That's what I do. I have bought, roasts, beef roast, stew meat and things like that, and made soups like that. I've done that too. But mostly what I do, especially now that the price has really shot up, I will buy the ground. And yes, I will buy the kind that are in that weird plastic tube. And my brother he used to be a butcher, and he would say, you don't need to eat that. You don't know what's in it. But again, we're not talking about making food and canning it just for pure enjoyment. We're talking about just having food when there's a time when there's no food. So I don't mind buying those big rolls because they're the cheapest. And the rolls of the turkey, ground turkey, because it's cheaper. So that's what I do. I'll buy, I don't know how many pounds I usually buy a week. Maybe 10 pounds of ground beef and 10 pounds of ground turkey. I like to mix ground turkey and ground beef together when I cook meals because ground turkey is cheaper and it saves me money. But I don't usually can ground beef. I don't can ground beef and ground turkey together. There is a little difference in the time that it tells you to can it, if I remember correctly. But it's very easy. It's very easy, and it tastes. You know, the texture's a little different. The texture's kind of like Taco Bell meat. If you don't mind the texture of like the meat that's in Taco Bell tacos, you won't mind that texture. But it does taste much better. It just tastes like regular ground beef, in my opinion, or ground turkey. But all you do is you take a skillet, or I take a big pan, and I'll usually put like 5 pounds of meat at a time in a big pan and just cook it. I don't fully cook it. It'll be a little pink. I just want to make sure it gets hot and browned. I will cook onions in with it, put some seasonings in with it sometimes, a little salt and pepper. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just put a little salt, whatever. And then it's mostly cooked. You're going to still see some pink spots. You've got your mason jars, you've got your utensils, and you take the meat that's mostly cooked, and you just put it into the jars, hot jars, okay? It's got to be hot jars. And you fill them up with the meat, but you got to have about 1 inch space in the jar. It's very important to do that. You've got to follow the rules. And, you know, you can find the guidelines. I am going to put in the description box on this video a place that you can find online where it will give you the safety instructions on how to do these things and how to can these things. I may also send a link of a channel that I watch where I learned a lot about canning food from the woman that has this channel. I'll probably send videos of hers. But what you do is the meat's mostly cooked. It's hot. You pour some boiling water in it. Put the lid on. Put it in your canner. Your canner should be kind of simmering and warm. Believe me, I don't need to be telling you about this because you really need to read and do everything step by step according to the instructions of your canner and of the resources that I'm going to give you. But you can can the ground beef, and then I can the ground turkey. So these are the main things that I do. Every week I've been doing the chicken, like I said, and then doing the beef and the turkey. And this is meat. For me at this point right now, it's not about quality. It's not about what is the top-notch and healthiest and tastiest kind. I do try to make it as tasty as possible. I do make it as safe as possible. It needs to be bacteria-free so that it will be shelf-stable for years, if need be. Because we just simply want to have meat when we need it. And we'll be able to ration it. So this is what I do. I probably spend, I'm thinking it's like about, so when you start up and you buy your canner, you're going to be investing around $300, I think, at the most, if you buy an inexpensive canner. Some of the best canners are pretty expensive. But, you know, you're going to get jars, you're going to get the utensils. I highly recommend buying the Ball canning recipe book. It was $8. I highly recommend it. It's a very good resource. Help you to do things properly. And so that's your startup cost. But in each week, while the Lord has been telling me to buy meat, I'm generally spending about, I'm going to say about $200 in meat. $200 a week is what it's been. It's a little higher since all of a sudden beef went up. But it's a lot of money, But as I can it, it's shelf stable and it's worth it. And we'll have that as meat continues to get higher in price and as we have food shortages and eventually when the famine comes. So I work hard. I do a lot of canning every week. It's a nonstop thing basically. I rest on the weekends a little bit. Mostly meat. I do soups. I've been also making bean soups. Beans. I just put beans, potatoes, and some kind of meat. Sometimes it's like smoked sausages, or sometimes it's just diced ham. You have to be careful with ham and cured meats. You should look that up and read about it, but you can use it. You can with it. So I've made some really good soups with summer sausage and ham, diced ham with beans. So when I'm done with all this meat, and I feel like I've gone as far as I can go with it, what I'm going to be canning is vegetables, mostly dried beans, legumes. Lentils are very high in protein, high in carbs. Making lots of that, canning lots of different kinds of beans, canning soups with potatoes and beans and carrots, onions, celery, things that are very nutritious. I'll also be canning apples. And with apples, you don't use a pressure. You don't have to you don't pressure can those. You water bath can those, and we'll talk more about that. There are some foods like tomatoes, most all of your fruits, jellies and jams, pickles. These are things. I think cabbage as well as sauerkraut. These are things that you water bath can because of the pH. This is a very scientific, it's a lot of chemistry, but there are some foods you can't pressure can. You have to water bath can. There are some foods that you cannot water bath can. You have to pressure can it. So if you make jellies and you deal with fruits, I like to make apples. We love to make pickles. Timmy loved the pickles we made last year, and he's been wanting to make more again. Very easy, but for us, we have found that this is a way to prepare for the famine that's coming. We're going to dehydrate a lot of stuff too. We really haven't gotten into that yet, and I want to make videos about it. You can dehydrate a lot of different things, fruits, veggies, and meats. And I also want to cure some things, so I'd like to talk about that. The Lord has also spoken to me about indoor gardening. Outdoor gardening is not going to be something that will be easy to do. I can talk more about that when I make that video. So we're going to do some indoor gardening. And the indoor gardening I want to do would be with potatoes, some herbs, and some greens. So, because that's a nice variety. You're getting a lot of vegetables there and tomatoes. You're getting salad, you're getting, you're getting some good sources of nutrients and starches in those foods that you can grow indoor. Now, I hope this video has been helpful. I'm not going to teach you how to can. I'm going to tell you right now, there is a very delicate process to it. Maybe I will make a video about that, but really, when you go out and you buy a canner, you're going to read your instruction booklet. You need to read it carefully, and you need to go by every guideline that you can find so that your food is preserved and shelf stable for as long as possible, and so that you can feed your family. If for some reason we're raptured out of here and our food is left, it's left for others. I don't mind that. I do think about that. I pray about the food that I cook and can. I pray about it. If it's going to be my great-grandchildren, if it's going to be my grandkids, it's going to be my kids. If it's going to be strangers, if it's going to be whoever gets a hold of it, I'm happy to make that. I'm happy to make the food for myself and my family, and for any other human being, regardless of what happens. So that's where my heart is in it. God knows best. He has told me to do these things. There is biblical basis for storing up food. There's also a biblical basis for trusting in God to provide if you don't have the money to buy things like canners and to do these kinds of things. I hope that this video has helped you in some way to have some ideas about some rather inexpensive ways, even though it's a lot of work, for meats and canning meats. God bless you all. Pray for you all. Please let me know in the comments if you start canning and how things turn out. And you can also ask questions. I may not be able to answer them right away. I may not have an answer at all, but I'm going to do my best to answer those questions about canning and food preservation, anything about scripture basis for it. And I would love to hear your stories or hear about how you can and what you can, the different foods you can. I would love it. I love to hear those stories. So yeah, put lots in the comments below. I'm excited about this. God bless you all.